viewers, Eric O here, South Main Auto. Welcome back to our channel. If you're new here, welcome to our channel. Got a 2008 Chrysler Town and Country behind me. It's got the 3.8 liter. It came in the other day for some other work. I don't even really recall what it was, but I noticed it had an antifreeze leak when it was in. So I looked at it for the customer and let them know what was going on, and they set up an appointment here. Long story short, it's leaking out of the intake manifold and it's dumping all over the bell housing of the transmission, and he wants it fixed, so come along. I do have to take a moment here though. Got this little guy in the mail today, along with this little guy in the mail, and what they are is the OTC brake caliper hanger set. They're these little metal S-hooks, and they come from my friend Troy. And he sent them to us as a gift, so we appreciate that. And I can only assume that Troy is sick of watching me use my little bendy metal things. I don't even know what to call them, but that's what I always hung calipers with. And you know, quite a few people commented in one video that I did that they use these, and well, frankly, I just never got around to buy them. Now I don't have to. So thanks, Troy. Thanks for sending these. We always appreciate everybody's gifts, even you know, when you don't give us stuff, your thumbs ups, your likes. You know, the donations, we get a lot of those. We really appreciate that, and really kind of helps the motivation and helps you know, to offset some of the time that it actually takes to do these videos. So we appreciate all of you, and thanks again, Troy, for these. I'm sure you'll be seeing them in some upcoming videos. Kind of give you an idea where that's leaking. You can see all the orange crust there starting to build up on top of the transmission bell housing right below that head. It kind of goes over there at the base of the intake. You know, if yours is doing this, I'd encourage you to do the same thing I did. You know, if you have the means to pressurize the cooling system so you can see where it's leaking, do that, because there are some other possibilities here. I haven't seen it yet, but you know, you could have a leak in thermostat housing. You know, you could actually, the cylinder head could be leaking there. But in this case, it was leaking, you know, pretty obviously out of the intake manifold. It's always been my habit when starting a job like this, we're going to open up a, I guess you call it a major engine component, or, you know, pull an intake or something that's really going to expose the inside of the engine. I always take a blow nozzle and just kind of blast everything off before I start, where everything is, you know, essentially sealed up. Because what will happen, you know, you get under there with a, you know, an air ratchet if you're using air tools, and you know, all of a sudden you got a valve cover off or something. When you go to use your air ratchet over, you know, somewhere else on the car, and you know, it could kick up a bunch of dirt and debris, even off the cowl, you know, so some areas you don't think of. So it's always a good idea to just take the, you know, the blow nozzle and just kind of blast everything off, and that should get rid of any of the loose stuff that could really cause you problems later on. Well, I guess we'll quit talking about it and start doing it. So first things first, we got to pull this upper intake, it looks like. Get that peeled off there. I don't know if you guys work in shops or not, but I see more and more of these Chryslers coming in, like the Avengers and these Caravans and stuff. They have these plastic tabs just gone or missing one. And I had to get an air box the other day for a lady. I think it was an Avenger, or, you know, one of the little Chrysler cars. It was expensive. I think it was like over $100 just to get it, you know, because these tabs are broke. Those tabs are broke. Then, you know, that's the end of it. It's going to let all the dirt and crap in the engine. So I don't know if you guys see that where you work or not. What do we got here? Looks like we got a map sensor here. Get this thing unplugged. These Chryslers and their red locks, man, I tell you what, those things are awful. We got a brake booster hose over here. We gotta get that unhooked. Got another vacuum line over here by the throttle body. See if we can get that popped off there. We got a big one over here on the intake. Looks like sort of PCV or something there. This little one over here is stuck on there pretty darn good. hose pick under is. There, whew, that baby's on there. So this, I think it's a PCV, it looks like. It's got a big metal clamp on it. I'm gonna go behind it with these pliers here. These are actual hose clamp pliers. Let's see if I can't get locked on that. It's one of those spring clamps. Get that pulled up off there. Alright, so that was easy. Feels pretty hard and brittle. I'll just leave it where it is for right now until we can get a better look at it. Just got to unhook this connector down here on our throttle body. And doesn't appear to have any lock tabs or anything on it. Boy, it's kind of a bear to get your fingers in there. Got 2 pinch tabs on it. You got to pinch both them down and get them. And I got one, but not the other. Get the bottom one pinched, but this top one, see if I can get a pick under it just a little bit here. There we go, man. I tell you, we put the, we're putting the red locks up here on the map sensor, and down here, I mean, thankfully they don't have any locks, but so yeah, basically, like I say, you've got 2 pinch tabs. Ideally, you can go in there and pinch them and pull them off, but pretty snug fit. The CGR pick here has to go. Couple of screws up there on top, and we got one bolt here that goes down, holds it to the lower intake. And then all the way around the back side there's 2 bolts that hold it into the EGR valve, and they look super crusty on this, so I'm going to bust them loose by hand. They take an 8mm socket. Oh, that one came right loose easy. Oh yeah, they both did great, fabulous. That was good. Got this real long 1/4" drive ratchet from Snap-on. This thing's great. It really gives you a lot of torque, that you can use with smaller sockets. So if you guys don't have one of these things are super handy. Now there's going to be a gasket with your EGR pipe that's going to go on here. It's either going to be stuck to the EGR valve or stuck to this, EGR tube. So make sure you don't lose that. Just wanted to double check. Mine's stuck to the EGR valve, and it looks like it's intact. So you can either choose to replace that or not. I've reused them quite often and never had any repercussions from it. It looks like to me that we're ready to peel this upper plenum off. Looks like everything. So the bracket here. Look like there's just 8 bolts holding that on. I guess the next thing we got to do is start working on actually getting ready to get this lower loose. So got a couple wiring harnesses over here we got to unhook. We've got to remove this coil pack, it looks like, because it looks like the bracket bolts to it, and looks like we got a bracket over here on the alternator we've got to remove, and we've got a gas line here. It's got its own disconnect tool, which is pretty handy. As much as I think Chryslers are junk, that's kind of a good idea. So yeah, let's get ripping and tearing. Peel this coil off here. Some more red locks. It just sits on there, that's lovely. connectors up out of the way and get the EGR valve unhooked here, the electrical portion of it. I see there's a coolant sensor down here by this heater core hose. I don't think we have to unhook it because this wiring harness is going to come out with the lower intake, so you don't have to worry about trying to get to that. But these two harnesses over here, there's a gray one, or yeah, a brown one and a black one. A couple big connectors there we've got to unhook. Let's get both of those undone. Looks like there's going to be a metal bracket over here too. I guess we can do that gas line. So we'll unhook this gas line. I'm just going to stuff a pig mat under it and use a rag, but essentially these here you just push them in, then that black plastic piece you push it into the gas line and kind of hold it in and wiggle it up off there, and they'll come right off like that. So it's kind of neat. They do put the quick disconnect tool right on it. Chrysler's done that for a long time. I remember even on like the old K cars, the old throttle body stuff, they had that back there, and they'd always be back like on the gas filter, and they always seem to work, so I guess I can't knock them for it. I guess fair warning, that could be under pressure. You might want to depressurize it while the thing still runs, you know, pull the fuel pump relay until it stalls or something, or just wrap a rag around it, whichever. Alright, so what we have is over here by these connectors. I think you'll notice if you're doing this, there is a metal bracket here that goes over to the engine mount. Oops. And bolts to the intake manifold. So we got to get that off, but this power steering line runs right smack over top of the one bolt. So we're going to take the power steering line off here, and there's another small, looks like maybe a 10mm headed screw that holds that power steering line on. That'll give us enough adjustment there to get to the bracket. Take that one off. I think there's another one down here. There's a little bolt down there. There we go. That makes that good and loose. So it looks like those bolts that are on that bracket look like a 13, so we'll see. Might need a little extension here. Oh, there's one right there. Get them loose. There's that one, so there's those two there. Then there's one that bolts to the intake here. I can see that. It's kind of right between these harnesses. I'm going to flashlight here. There it is. Let's see if I can get this in there without... Oh, it's a bolt or a nut. I think it's a nut. Yeah, it's a nut. Of course I dropped it. Fish that out of there. There we go. All right. Take and get this bracket lifted right up out of there. So that's what that looks like. You'll see that in there. So it appears to me that these two wiring harness connectors are going to be in the way to remove the intake. They were kind of in the way of that bracket, so I'm going to use a little pry bar / screwdriver here to work them up out of there. They're held in just with these two little push retainers here, so we'll take them loose and get them right up out of our way. That way they don't hinder our removing of the intake here, because I think the bracket that they're clipped into appears to be one of the bolts. Yeah, it's bolted on one of the bolts that holds the intake, so it'll just be a lot easier when these are out of the way, in my opinion. Got that intake just about ready to come off. Next thing we gotta do is unhook these hoses. They feel pretty empty. I think you ran it pretty well dry. Best thing to do though is to just, drain the radiator. Chrysler didn't put a petcock on this radiator. So what I'm going to do, or it's been my habit to do, is just we're going to come down here, we're going to unhook the lower radiator hose and you know, have a bucket underneath that and just let it drain that way. There. Well, now that that's draining or drained, we'll take and pull this upper hose off. It's got little spring clamps on it too, so we'll just slide that back. Back my pliers off there. Get that hose unhooked. Whoa! Ah, never fails. At least it didn't fall to the middle of the car. Get that off. Tip that up there. Take and pull this heater hose off. Looks like somebody's probably been back here. I see a bunch of clamps. Usually this would be a bunch of spring clamps on there. Knock that off there. But I don't know, maybe they had a leak or something there, and they put regular style hose clamps on it. I know some guys that when they take these spring style clamps off, they don't reuse them. I can't really say I've ever had a problem reusing them, so I've been doing it, I don't know, quite a few years. I guess it's always been my habit though, is when I put them back on, I put them right back on in the groove that I took them off from. I don't know if that's right or wrong, or just been getting lucky, but anyhow. Okay, I think we're ready. Doesn't look like we're missing anything else. I don't think we have to pull the fuel injectors here. So we should be in good shape. Let me get a socket here, and I think we can pull this intake off now. I'm just going to use an extension and a little 10mm socket there. Yeah, I better grab a bigger air ratchet. Mustard either. Wow. Try something different. This thing will peel lug nuts, so it's gonna go or blow now. That'll do it. So this PCV hose here is rock hard. Oh, that one's a stud. Looks like we're gonna need a 13. Got one right here. Let's see if we can reach it with that. Alright, I think we got it. Let's see, we'll take this bracket off. This is the bracket over here that held the wires that we took off earlier. And then just opposite that, that one had a stud. So, because that's where the bracket that went to the engine mount there, that's what this bolted to. So we got those, and the rest of them were just regular bolts. Felt like they got a lot of carbon and gook and crap that's stuck to them. We're gonna have to clean that off. It's made kind of a mess. The one air ratchet there wouldn't take them out, but a couple of the other ones, they felt loose. So I think it all depends on how much carbon and junk they've got on them. All right, beautiful. I just wanted to get a little of that trash off there. I want to blow this off one more time. Just try to plug up a couple of these holes a little bit. We're going to have this all off anyways, but if I remember right, these gaskets on these are just like not really a gasket type material as you would think. It's just a tin valley pan gasket, I guess I'd call it, valley tin. I don't really know the official name for it. Sits in there. All right. Yeah, I think we're in good shape. Wouldn't even tell you. I thought I'd have to crack it loose. Well, should lift right off there. So to get that off, you should have something that looks like that. You can see evidence of the antifreeze actually leaking inside the valley here, which is not a huge deal. It can't really go anywhere until it, unless it was to migrate to a leaking intake portion. But definitely obvious that these water crossovers here are on both ends. It's definitely leaking out of this side for sure. Get a lot better look at the leak now. You can see where it's all building up here. It must have been migrating out of here around this area and down and out. A lot of sludge and debris here. Looks like it's leaking out of this one more than anything. I see a lot of the orange crust build up on that side. So I just want to blow this out a little bit down in this valley before we pull it. Because once we pull this, it's going to expose, the lifters and stuff. Just kind of plug these off a little bit here. There's not much junk sitting in here, but better safe than sorry, I guess. All right. Just a little bit down here on the ends. I want to tell you what. Let me. If it's sitting up on top of that tin plate, I really don't worry about it. I just want to get some of the stuff that was right here on the edges. clean up a little bit easier. So yank those back out. Set them up there. Looks like we got two bolts holding that on. 10 millimeter it appears. I think those little metal blocks come on the new gasket, so we shouldn't have to worry about those. There's one there. One right there. The gasket's off, and now there's a lot of this debris floating around. See, it looks like we got one little piece down here, that black, that material that's not part of the gasket. I think it's the sealing stuff, but it's kind of like paint chips. It's all just sitting loose there. Nothing's down inside the engine yet. I'm gonna take and try to block that off. I'm gonna go get the shop vac, start vacuuming some of this stuff out of here, because we've got to do a little bit of cleaning first. It's a challenge is to keep this stuff out of the engine. You get a little flake or two in there, it's not going to be a huge ordeal. But try to get your rag set in there and just kind of block as much as you can. I like to use these pig mats. They're super absorbent, and I think you can pick them up just about anywhere. Just Google it, pig mat. We buy the off-brand. I don't know what they call them, but they all look the same. They all work the same. So you can just cut them with a pair of scissors, whatever shape you need, and that's what I did. So that fits in there good. So now I'm not too worried about that. Like I said, I'm going to get the vacuum cleaner. We're going to start cracking some of this stuff loose and getting it sucked out of there. So I just got my little shop vac here. Just going to go along and suck some of this debris off there. Alright, now that I've got most of that big debris out of there, I'm just going to go ahead and get them ports plugged up again. Probably could have just left the papers right in there, but I want to make sure we seal it up, pretty good this time. We're going to go through and spray that off and get them cleaned off there the best we can. It's probably one of the most important parts about doing any job, is particularly when it comes to a sealing type job, a new gasket, is how good you clean it. You don't want to take all the time to get this far and then do a crappy job cleaning it and end up with the same problem you started with. So definitely make sure you take a few minutes to do a good job here, is all I can say. I'm going to go along with my flat carbide scraper. Now before you ask, they don't make this anymore. Unfortunately, this is a phenomenal scraper just because it just works so well. On these surfaces like this, you can just come up and it just cleans them up real nice. And so I'm just going to go along each port here and just start cracking some more of this loose. I'm going to come by and suck some more of it off and Just kind of keep on going here. Well, now they've got it scraped off, got it you know, vacuumed off the best we can. I like to use these. These are put out by 3M. I think they call them bristle discs. They come in coarse, medium, and fine. I believe the green is the medium. Better check, otherwise you guys will fry me on that. Well, it doesn't say. I'm pretty sure the green's the medium, yellow's the coarse. So we're going to use the green disc here. And usually, in a case like this, I'll use it in conjunction, like with some carb cleaner. And I'll just spray it because it helps clean the surface good. And everything's plugged up. Any carb cleaner that hits this mat, you know, immediately gets absorbed. So I usually just spray off a section of it. And I'll go through and clean it off. And basically I just continue on with this process, kind of rinsing it off. And even if a little of this did get in the oil, it's not a huge deal. We're changing oil on it anyways. Alright, well, I made a mistake. Gotta own up to it now. I told you guys that I thought the green was the medium. It's not, it's the coarse. There's probably a lot of people going bananas right now. It's not gonna cause any problems. The main thing is when you're using them, you wanna keep them nice and flat. They're quite forgiving and they're far from aggressive, I guess, when it comes to using them, like on aluminum. I use them a lot on aluminum, so I've never had any repercussions from it. Usually if I'm doing head gaskets or something, I like to use the white one if I use one at all, but you know, things like this, it'll work fine. So I just took a little bit of carb cleaner there and just kind of going over it after you use the disc. If you don't have one of those, you can just, you know, continue to scrape it. You can use a medium grit, you know, Scotch-Brite pad and go over it. Anything to get the old gasket material off is the big thing. And now that we've got that off, I'm just going to take a blow nozzle. Just kind of want to make sure all the bolt holes are cleared out. Don't want any juice left in them. And just be on the safe side if you want. You can just go around it again. You know, if you think you've got some debris out there. Clean and dry is the important part. Of course, we'll double check it again before we put the intake on. Pull out our napkins for the last time. I don't think we're going to need them anymore. The shop vac is probably the handiest tool when it comes to these things. All right, now we've got to take our mop here we got down here in the bottom. We want to contain any debris that's sitting on top of it. Kind of fold it in towards itself. Take that right out and we're good. It looks good and clean. I'm happy with it if you are. I guess we forgot two bolt holes. We got these two down here that hold the gasket actually in. It's pretty important that those are clean so our bolt doesn't bottom out and ooze out any oil. We're going to have silicone down there. So we definitely want these corners of the intake. Like I say, we'll double check them before we put the gasket down, make sure they're good and dry. Clean, free of grease. Just going to come out of the parts cleaner now. Pretty much do the same process on the intake here. Scrape all the crust off it, get all the junk off it. Just basically do the same thing that we did in the car. So I don't think I really have to show you that whole procedure, but we're gonna wash it down. I know quite a few guys might question, whether or not the parts cleaner is gonna hurt the exterior of the injectors or the wires or anything like that. And I can say I've had this same parts system, parts cleaner, solvent and stuff for, quite a few years, for about, oh gosh, probably at least 6 years now I've had this company. And I've never seen it hurt any plastic, swell up wires, make any of the rubbers, swell up like a lot of other parts cleaner solvents I've seen. So I don't worry about it so much. We're just going to get this cleaned off, and I'm going to take and scrape off the mating surface here, use the gasket cleaner again, get that cleaned up, make sure it's clean and straight and ready to go, and we'll put this thing back together. So I got the upper or lower intake manifold cleaned off, I guess. We got our new gasket here. It's one we got from Felpro. Just a new tin gasket. Comes with the upper plenum O-rings are in that box. So you can see it has the little metal end tabs there. It's got the little rubber end seals too. Got to put a little dab of silicone down in the four corners there. I'm going to put this on and bolt it on. Alright, so I would say before you put your silicone down, make sure everything's ready to go. Make sure your intake's clean. You've got the bolts that hold the intake down. Wire brush those off. These ones here, make sure they're clean and ready to go. And then we're going to go through, we're going to put our dabs of silicone. You're going to put your intake gasket on. I think the torque spec's like 105 inch-pounds on those two end bolts. But like I say, just make sure everything's clean and ready to go, because you don't want to be fumbling while this stuff's drying. Alright, so here we go. I think if you read the directions, it tells you to put a 1/4 inch bead in the corners. So we'll do that. Take our new gasket, set it right down in there. Put the two bolts in it. Like I say, I think you have to double check torque spec on those, but I think it's at 105 inch-pounds. So get them torqued on. Then we're going to grab our intake manifold, make sure the surfaces on that are good and clean. Get our torque specs on that and get that tightened down too. Got our intake here, and that's good and clean. Just kind of double checking it, make sure if you clean this off with brake parts cleaner or carb cleaner, whatever you use, just make sure there's no solvent leaking out of the ports still. We blew it off pretty good. Top's clean, everything's ready to go. If it's your own vehicle and you're doing it yourself, you want to change your thermostat, it's a good time to do that. And you can disassemble it to whatever means you find necessary. This is as far as you have to take it to do this job, so that's as far as we're going. We're just fixing an antifreeze leak. We're not fixing anything else because it has no other issues. Okay, we're as good as we can be. We're gonna take it. Man, I wish I could push that PCV hose out of the way, but I really don't want to mess with it any more than I have to. Let's vacuum line. Pick that up. Set it down on there. You want to try to set it right over top of the holes that you're going to use. That way you don't have to wiggle it around a whole lot. Particularly if this was a style intake that had silicone end seals, you want to pop them suckers down on there as straight as can be. So we're going to go ahead and just install the bolts. And I guess it would be a fair thing to mention, I didn't show it, but if the bolts were all cruddy and crusty, make sure you clean them off. If you remember, a couple of these bolts came out hard. The one with the stud in it goes in the back corner, facing the firewall, or in towards the firewall. So make sure you put them on right. So I'm just going to go through and get all these bolts started, and we'll torque them down. once you get all the bolts started, you're just going to start from the center and work your way out. Get it started on there. So the first torque step is like 10 inch-pounds, then 200, then 200 again. So we're just gonna go through and start drawing them up here a little bit, just till they touch. 10 inch-pounds is pretty much nothing. So they just want you to draw them down evenly, I guess. So you can see them when they start to touch. Oops. Got my magnet here. That'd be a smart idea to tape the top of those intakes shut. Touched. It's close. Switch over to our 13. Alright, grab a torque wrench. Yeah, so I just double checked. It's 10 inch-pounds, then 200, then 200. Quite honestly, 10 inch-pounds is absolutely ridiculous. You can literally pinch that bolt with the end of your fingers and tighten it to 10 inch-pounds. I would have to probably special order a torque wrench to go that low. I mean, most of your inch-pound torque wrenches start at 30 or so and go up to 200. But just use common sense. I mean, if you can't figure that out, well. So they just want to draw it down in an even fashion. So I'm just going to skip around. Like I say, start at the center, work my way out. I'm not going to jump right on a single bolt and go right to 200 inch-pounds, because that would also be foolish to go from 10 to 200. So I'm just going to make sure we're drawing down even here, and then ultimately end up at our goal, our torque spec. But like I say, I'm not just going to cowboy down on just one bolt. Kind of stinks. You got to switch out to the 13 millimeter here. But I don't know. Some people are real torque Nazis, especially when it comes to YouTube. You don't torque some 100%. My God, they go nuts on you. Well, like I say, common sense goes a long ways. Not just in this business, but in life in general. You see a lot of people that lack it. Okay, so basically, since we've gone through and snugged those up, we're at the point where it's going to start creeping up on the 200 foot-pounds. So we're just going to start at the inside. Just basically just keep going around like we have been. Working our way from the inside out. Got to hit them all at 200. And then we're going to go through and double check to make sure they're all there. They all stayed there. It's a funny thing, when you're torquing, and until you have a digital torque wrench, you know, that gives you your live display reading. You don't realize, or maybe you do realize, how much you actually over torque something by, you know, when it clicks, and then you just, you know, you push just like a little tiny bit more. You can easily, you know, if you're torquing something that's, let's say, you know, 100 foot-pounds for the sake of argument, you're pushing it, clicks, and like you lean down it a little bit too much, well, you're all of a sudden you're at 140 foot-pounds, you know, or 130. So, you know, when people scream about you, you know, not torquing it and stuff, and I mean, your torque wrenches have to be calibrated, and you know, there's a lot of variables. So I think it's more important to have even pressure, whether it's you know, let's say in this case, say it was 240 inch-pounds. I think it's more important that it was torqued down evenly than it was, you know, the exact amount of pressure. I may be way off on that, but I think that's kind of a bigger factor. But like I said, I may be way off. It's just my own crap I'm making up. All right, so basically now we're just going to start working backwards and putting things back together. It's pretty much just a swaptronics at this point. Getting things put on here the right way. Well, should have it going the right way here. And just making sure, put everything on, torque it how it needs to be, get all your clamps back on. And so I'm just going to kind of work backwards at that. Hooking hoses back up, plugging our EGR in, plugging it, you know, making sure we get our coil and everything plugged in, all the red locks snapped in, and just kind of keep moving on here. It's a pretty quick job now. We got our bracket and all that stuff we've had on hook there, we got to get back on. Let's see, we got our wiring harness here that has to come over. The wiring harness there for the rear plug wires hooks over a couple studs on the valve cover. Plug wires in. Alright. Get our upper on, and we'll fish the EGR pipe and all that business over. Number 2. 4 and 6. Before we hook up our wiring harness over here, we've got to fish this back down through there. Trying to remember if I think the wiring harness went up over it. So hook that on that stud. Get our bolts back in the bracket there and get that tightened down. Right here. Hook your gas line up. That's just going to click back on. As soon as we get this on, we'll put our power steering line back in place where that was. Alright, and what else do we have? Let's see. Click those, close the locks. That's our throttle body wire there. Put those, close the lock. Reattach them. This is the wire here for our intake air temp sensor. And this here is our brackets. One on that. Where did I put the stud? There's the stud right there. So for a minute, got the small 10mm bolt that we took out of the power steering line there. We got to get that on. Torque down. Okay, we're in pretty good shape here. I think that was everything on our lower. We're down to just putting the plenum back on. So let's get that cleaned up and get that back on. All right, so here's the plenum. Basically, we're just replacing the O-ring gaskets in the bottom of it. You know, it's up to you. You know, if you have a parts washer, you throw it in a parts washer. As long as there's no loose debris on it's the big thing, and you know, they're clean where the you know, these gaskets go. I'm going to elect to, you know, not throw it in parts washer. This has electric throttle body on it. I don't want to, you know, take a chance causing any damage there. I am just going to take and, you know, just kind of cap it off and blow off any of the loose debris and make sure there's nothing laying loose in the ports and just put the gaskets on it. Gasket's got a little locator tab on them, so they really essentially only go in one way. Just kind of stick them on there, and they've got little retainers molded onto them. These little dimples they mold onto them. Sticks them in the gasket or in the intake. You know, keeps them from, you know, falling out when you turn it upside down. Holds them in there pretty good. So we're just going to stick all those on and press them in. You know, it's up to you if you wanted to completely disassemble your upper intake to use some solvent to clean it. Maybe you could use something like seafoam. That's not real aggressive on plastic, or, you know, something of that nature, but I find it's really kind of unnecessary. I don't think there's any performance gain or anything you'll get from it. So at either rate, whatever you decide to do is fine. Just take and you know, put your new gaskets on, and then we're going to bring it over and just set it on the engine here. That stuff hooked up so we don't forget. Just had our brake booster, or I think it's our PCV system. Another vacuum hose there. Probably runs to a purge solenoid or something. Yep. And same thing. We're gonna go through. Got all of our bolts on. Once we got all those started, we'll just take and torque this down, and we're just about done. Alright, so this here will be tightened down, working from the center out, and I think it was 105 inch-pounds. See you, Gary. Now we got a little snugged up. We'll just go through and finish tightening them up. Yeah, I think we're good. We've got it torqued down good and even. So now we'll put that EGR pipe on. Like I mentioned before when I took this off, you know, if this gasket got damaged or it's missing or, you know, tore when you took it off, you're going to have to replace it. This one stayed intact. The upper portion here where it goes into the intake is rubber O-ring. So they're, you know, I guess I don't want to say always reusable, but the majority of the time. I can't say I've ever replaced one for anything. And again, when you got this off, if you wanted to go through and, clean out the EGR tube, you could be a good time to do that. Then we're going to stick the bolts back in the bottom side of it here and get these snugged up. A couple things I did off camera. I've got the clamp that goes back on your PCV hose. Make sure you put that on. There's a clamp down here on this heater hose. Make sure you get that put back on. And the other thing we're going to do too is hook up the lower radiator hose. You don't want to forget that. So sometimes going back together, I'll just just kind of bounce all over the place depending on where I'm at, what I'm looking at. Just start putting it together. Oh, I'm trying to remember where I left off. I've been doing about 50 other things here. I think it was tightening up the EGR. So yeah, get the EGR on there, get that tightened up. We're going to take and throw our air cleaner assembly back on here. That hooked up, we'll tighten up that clamp. And we are at the point where we can start it. Okay, everything is as it should be. I was just thinking here, I never hooked up the throttle body. So getting ahead of myself here a little bit. Good thing we didn't start it like that. So make sure you hook your throttle body connector back up. I think that's the only thing. Well, it always pays to double check yourself. Boy, I'm pretty sure we're good now. Air cleaner's hooked up, throttle body's hooked up. Intake air. It's a problem off camera a lot. I'm get people stop in. You gotta check stuff over, do estimates, and get interrupted a zillion times. So now I think we're ready. I'm gonna go wash my hands, get this thing fired up. So I know right now that we don't have any any coolant in it. We've got everything hooked up. The car's full of oil. We didn't get very little, if any, contamination inside the engine valley when we had it apart. So I'm not afraid right now to fire it up just briefly, make sure it starts and runs. It's quitting time. I've got some things I got to do here after work, so I'm going to make sure it runs. Tomorrow morning I'm going to come in and just fill it up with coolant. It's a pretty easy procedure. So if you made it to this point, the best thing to do now is just, like I say, start it, make sure it runs. If it does, let it run just a few seconds. Fill it up with coolant, after it runs. Start it up, let it warm up, and in my case, this car is due for a service. So tomorrow, when I do fill it up with coolant, I'm gonna take and start it up, let it warm up, fill it up with coolant. Make sure it's all bled out. Make sure it's circulating good. We've got good heat, and then I'm just gonna continue on my service. Gonna change oil. Personally, I guess if I was doing this and it technically wasn't due for an oil change, I probably would still change it. In my opinion, simply because if you did get debris, down in the intake valley there, or you're suspect of getting, your brake parts cleaner, it would probably be in your best interest to just, go ahead and just clean it, or change the oil rather. Step out of the way. I think it's safe to say this job is successful. Of course, we won't 100% know until we fill it up with coolant. I'm pretty confident, I guess, that it will seal and won't have any issues there. I did make a mistake though. I did use the coarse disc on the cylinder heads when I should have used medium or fine. Probably not going to cause any problems. I know some shops that use just green, use them on everything. I'm not trying to make an excuse, but no, that was my bad. Like I say, there's not going to be any effect from it. So, make sure when you're cleaning the surfaces, whatever you're cleaning with stays good and straight and flat. Use a shop vac. Just make sure you're clean, I guess is the best thing. This is a pretty simple job to do. And you can do it as in-depth or as little in-depth as you want to, I guess, for lack of terminology there. If you want to go through and do a thermostat and, tear everything apart and do like this extensive cleaning job, that's great. You know, here in the shop, I got to do things in a timely fashion and, you know, do a good job and fix the problem at hand, which we did, which, you know, was the coolant leak issue. So that's all taken care of now. Yeah, other than that, I mean, it's pretty straightforward. You might want to get yourself a torque wrench if you don't have one. Like I say, common sense goes a long ways. I always said, you know, use your mind, not your muscle, you know, when it comes to torquing fasteners and such. So at any rate, I guess we'll wrap this up. If for some reason I fill it up tomorrow and things go drastically wrong, I'll turn the camera back on, but I'm pretty sure we're in good shape. So check us out on Facebook if you haven't already. You can like us there. You can find me on Google+. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to our channel if you want to stay up to date with all the repairs that we do. And just remember, viewers, if I can do it, you can do it. Thanks for watching.